Doing school at home is all the rage these days. All the cool kids are doing it. Due to closures and concerns about coronavirus, 47% of parents have considered homeschooling their kids for the 2020-21 school year. But to be honest, there are tons of crazy, unsocial people who have already been homeschooling for a while now. Looking at you, Billie Eilish. Let's just look at just the facts about homeschooling in the U.S. The Massachusetts Bay Colony in the 1640s is often cited as the first mandatory schooling in the Americas. 200 years later, in 1852, the people of the state of Massachusetts followed the example of their ancestors and passed the first compulsory education law in the U.S. And by 1918, every state in the U.S. had laws which made school attendance mandatory. While this mandatory schooling was poorly enforced until around 1940, public and private schools dominated the educational landscape until the Cultural Revolution of the 60s and 70s. The concept of education at home has been the norm for almost all of human history, but homeschooling, as we know it today, grew out of the countercultural fallout of the 1960s. In the 70s and 80s, there were a number of Supreme Court cases dealing with the parents' right to educate their child and scenarios involving homeschooling families. The Supreme Court has ruled that parents do have a right to direct their children's religious education, which may include the right to homeschool, but that the state can make curricular or testing requirements. The level of regulation varies from state to state, with states like Texas and Idaho having very little regulation and states like New York and Delaware heavily regulating homeschool activities. Homeschooling, as an educational approach, gradually gained more legal ground until 1993, the last few states finally legalized it. By 1999, 1.7% of all K-12 students in the U.S. were homeschooled, and the movement continued to grow until it leveled off around 3.4% in 2012. Among these students, 85% are homeschool only, while the remainder do some sort of hybrid or part-time schooling. When surveyed, 34% of homeschool parents declared that their biggest reason in deciding to homeschool was concern about the school environment, such as safety, drugs, or negative peer pressure. Other reasons cited as most important by families of homeschooled students in 2016 were dissatisfaction with academic instruction at other schools, 17%, and a desire to provide religious instruction, 16%. The academic achievement of homeschoolers is one of their most stereotyped aspects, and the data shows that homeschool students do consistently score higher than their public schooled counterparts on standardized tests, such as the ACT, but not as well as private schooled students. Additionally, one study found that homeschoolers may even do better in college. But more often than questions about academics, homeschool parents find themselves being asked questions about their children's socialization. There is a decent body of research in the social sciences on this topic, and the studies consistently show that homeschoolers perform as well or better than their peers in social skills and moral reasoning. One study concluded that the available studies show either no difference in socialization between homeschooled children and other children, or a difference favoring homeschooled children. And a different study cited notes that after the research portion of the study was done, the participating homeschool students even exchanged addresses and phone numbers for future contact. When I was doing this research, my first thought was that the reason for this must be due to socioeconomic factors, and I was surprised to find that homeschool family demographics do not vary extensively from the norm in education or income level, though whites and Hispanics are somewhat overrepresented. Given the religious tendencies of the homeschool population and the significant time investment required to homeschool, I was not surprised to find that homeschool children are significantly more likely to come from larger families and live in two-parent homes. Hi, I hope you enjoyed that video. Now that you have the facts, just remember that because you have the facts, it doesn't make you right, and it doesn't make you better than the person that you're discussing with. It just gives you an informational grounding to enter the public discourse on a factual basis. If I've omitted any of your favorite facts, please comment them below, and remember, keep it factual.